Half minutes. No, we don't. It's 6 o'clock. Let's rock and roll. That's short. Start the meeting. Good. Okay. All right. It is 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order of the Tokerville City Council business meeting. To start the meeting, we'll have Councilman Ellsworth lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Councilman Sipp will give us an opening prayer. All rise.
Please repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful that we can come together this evening as a city council and members of our great city of Tokerville. I'd like to thank you for this wonderful area we have to live in. Please bless this nation that we'll be able to come together in this trying time and we'll be able to learn to get along and do what we need to do to get through this. Please bless us with rain and moisture that we will be able to get through the hot and dry summer that we need. We ask that Spirit to give us always that we will make decisions that will benefit the citizens in our community. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. All right. We have no opening comments this evening. Are there any statements of belief from anyone in the audience today? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Look over the agenda order and make sure everything is where it should be and approve the agenda order if you can. Is there anything we need to move? Okay, hearing none, I would accept the motion.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Disclosures of declaration of conflict of interest from the council. Hearing none, we'll move into the consent agenda. Review and possible approval of meeting minutes from March 3rd work meeting, March 17th business meeting. Everybody had a chance to look those over?
They look good, Mayor. I move that we approve the minutes for March 3rd and March 17th.
Second motion here.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Possible approval of city expenditures for March 2020 or 21? It should be 2021. 2021 March expenditures.
Mayor, I move that we approve the expenditures.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the expenditures. A roll call vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, departments. Mr. Spendlove, we are so happy to have you here. You got anything for us?
Testing, yes. I hope most of you were asleep this morning when all the excitement was going on in Tokerville. Well, should have heard something maybe, but we had a kind of a bad accident down by Shadow Lane. I guess they come from, started the pursuit over at the Vertican Bridge and go all the way through town, I think a couple of back streets and then back that way and had to roll over there. So one fatality and one injury. So those will be added to my remarks for next meeting. But this month, or last month in March, we had a total of 15 medical calls over this way and 6 fire responses. So stayed fairly busy. That's probably a little higher than normal. Yeah. The fire responses, I would guess, is probably a couple more, and medical probably about 3 or 4 more than what we normally do. Not all were transports. Several of them were refusals, and one canceled before we got here. But come this way for 15 medical calls. So we're staying busy. Just keep plugging along. So, you guys have anything for me?
Thank you, sir.
Well, we are starting to get real busy over here in Tokerville. lots of things coming through the planning commission and be headed toward the council. Other than that, I don't have anything specific tonight for the council unless you have questions for me.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, in our last meeting, we actually had 4 public hearings. All were recommended and be in your next work meeting. We had 2 renewals approved, 1 conditional use, 1 home occupation. The 4 items from the public hearings, 2 were nightly rentals, 1 conditional use, and 1 preliminary plat for wall-to-wall, which we'll talk about in your work meeting. We did have SRC get recommended for approval, be coming to you. That's got, obviously, with the staff comments and making sure that they're all within the agreement with the city. We've done some amendments to the MPDO ordinance, which was, we took comments from the council last meeting. Have added those. They should be going to Attorney Snow. Hopefully we get that back so we can set them for public meeting in our next meeting. We're recommending doing away with the PDO ordinance. It's kind of not a lot to the ordinance to start with, and we can't see a real reason with the MPDO to have the PDO as well. And would like to set both of those for public hearing next month as well.
Okay. Any questions for Dan? All right, thank you. Lance?
I really don't have anything that we've covered. We did have a water leak. We've actually had 2 breaks there on that subdivision down in there, but we're dealing with it, and it's just the fact of things get old and break. I haven't. We're going to back it in the morning. We'll see what we have to do on that one, whether we replace Berry Lane or not. So, anything for me?
All right. People to be able to comment to the city council on items that are not on the agenda for tonight. So we'll give you 3 minutes. Anyone who would like to address the city council at this time on something of concern, please come and use the microphone. State your name and your address if you would.
Good evening, Council. Brad Langston. You're welcome. Thank you. I'm at 1166 Choya in Tokerville. And I'm here to see a few things. I'm here about the multi-use park, proposed one at Trail Ridge Estates Park. And I've been working with Jeff Wilmot to try to move it forward. And I know that Jeff has been in contact with Justin several times, but we have yet to hear anything back from Councilman Sipp or anyone else on how we should proceed at this point.
Are you asking for an update as?
Yeah, well, I'm simply asking how we should proceed.
Supposed to comment on public, on how we, on this, is this a comment time or?
Well, we got 3 minutes per, so.
Okay. So, yeah, I've been talking with Washington City, and Ty's talked to them about their dog park down there and the amount of maintenance it's taking to try to keep the grass alive, the fenced-in areas. And so we haven't got a direction exactly yet. We would love to see some park improvement, but to make it a fenced-in dog park per se, we're still not leaning that way yet. But we're still looking at what it's going to cost to keep that looking good. The last thing I want to do is go down there, fence it in, and all of a sudden the dogs tear it up. I need to go buy the one in Washington. I guess they've had it for a couple of years, and they spend more money in that park than any other park in the city, and it looks terrible.
Well, I would recommend if you're going to go see the Washington City Dog Park that you also go to the Fire something park in St. George. You can see the difference in how they're maintained. Washington Dog Park is pretty rough, and conversely, the one on Dixie Drive is pristine and beautiful.
in the air yet. I say if he wants to keep, I would definitely want some improvements down there. If he wants to generate some money and get some donations, the city's we're not going to stop that. We think it's going to be great. We got to figure out which direction we can go though.
And in talking about the money, so there's now $21,310 that has been donated towards this park. I think that speaks a lot about public support for the park, myself. And we want to know, Jeff wants to know, I want to know, what do we do with that money? How do we move this to the city? How is it done? How tax purpose wise? How does all that happen? But really, before all of that, Jeff and I need to know how we can participate in moving this forward. So if you will contact Jeff or I, we'd like to do that. Thank you.
I think as a council, we all need to have another discussion on this particular issue so we can get your input on it. And I've done some additional research as well. So.
Right.
I have a comment as well, or a question really, Justin. Is this something that might be better off if it went through the Parks Committee and then back to us?
Yeah, that's what we're going to start having a Parks Committee meetings now that COVID crap stuff is over and get back to normal. We'll have those meetings and that's the top of the list. That and the fundraiser in September.
So we would like to be informed when that meeting is, and there you go. That's even better. And I wondered, a public hearing, is that in order for something like this? Okay, so that would be
Public hearing kind of a thing. It's actually in the
Not
park plan,
necessarily.
isn't it?
It is. It's on.
it's on the plan. It's in the master plan. So, okay, thank you.
Want to address the city council? Okay. Hearing no one, then we will go into the public hearing part of our meeting. This is a public hearing for the seeking of public input on resolution increasing culinary water rates and base gallon usage, non-irrigation water rates and base gallon usage. I want to throw a little bit of information out there first, if we could. Mr. Chaves, are you prepared to talk about the state's involvement in this whole thing?
I've got a little document that I put together. I wouldn't consider. Dana, you pulling that up? I wouldn't. This is just something I put together this afternoon on it, and I thought if there were a lot of people here that did not understand why the base rate was going up, and one of the components that we were involved with the base rate was through the Department of Environmental Control, Quality Drinking Water. So they have, and I'll just go through this real quick, they have available financial assistance. That means the city's entitled to low interest loans that would be below market rate and grants. And to qualify for these grants, applications must demonstrate that the average water bill exceed 1.75% of the local median adjusted gross income. And that's what MAGI stands for, the median adjusted gross income. And so before any money can be considered being awarded to the city, we have to meet this particular formula. If I could just go through it, the Utah State, the adjusted gross income average is $47,200. Tokerville median adjusted gross income is $45,700. And this comes from the Utah State Tax Commission, which basically is the income tax returns. So the calculation for MAGI in Tokerville, we take our adjusted gross income of $45,700, multiply it by the factor that they've established, 1.75%. That means we have a total of $799.75. You divide that by 12 months to a year. That means our base water rate needs to be at $66.65.
At a minimum, right? That's
Minimum water rate, yes. At the last meeting, I was asked how I felt about it. I feel it's high. feels way high. I've been working diligently at trying to find a way to reduce it. However, I don't want the city to have to forfeit its accessibility to funding if needed. And these funds come from both state and federal agencies. They're used for planning costs for wells, springs, storage tanks, treatment facilities, distribution pipelines, water meters, and water quality improvements. So I'm not saying that I support this or not at this time. Right now, before public comment on this, I wanted an opportunity to explain what MAGI was to the public and the factor that it had in the proposed water rate increase.
Thank you. Anybody else from the council want to say anything before we open up public discussion? Okay, any comments from the public? If you come forward and address the city council from the podium, state your name and your address.
Seemed like last meeting, the goal was 55 to apply for the loan. Now you jumped to 66. Please explain. I mean, you got to tell me the story.
So whatever the half acre lot, $130 for a half acre lot, what the state charge, I mean, the county charges us for our taxes. You can use that to offset this, so that's what the $10.
Wayne, I was when we got to the discussion portion with the city council members, I was gonna bring that particular factor up.
We've
And
been at this discussion point for a year. And I hate to say it, but it never keeps climbing. You decide on something and then you change. Are we the only city that needs a loan, has to qualify for a loan because we're the highest water rate of any city around here? What puts us in the position that we have to be so high with our water rate to be able to get a loan compared to Hurricane, Leverkin, St. George, anybody like that? I can't grasp that. Why are we frivolously not in line?
Me personally, looking at being eligible for grant money, and we are gonna be needing a new tank down
So
there.
you're telling me all these other cities aren't eligible for grant money because they have a lower water rate?
What their MAGI is.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a little higher than we are mostly.
We're the highest in the county. Tocqueville City, I believe, is the highest, has the highest MAGI in the county. What's the Hurricane? 37.9, and Hurricane was 40,800, and we were at what, 45,000.
So Tocqueville costs a little more to live, so you get a little more expensive. People that can live here have a little more money, so we're being penalized for how that happened.
Where the numbers come from.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're planning on raising $30 a month just for water, I think you're out of line because you cannot go down. Are you sure you're correct? Because we've been battling this for a long time, and it's frustrating to me to hear one thing in one meeting, go out there and look at something different on the counter, and then come here and look at something different again, all within 2 weeks. You see my grief?
What we're seeing is an effort to be correct.
But are we correct? Because you make the final decision and you make a mistake, there's no going down. There's no taking it back down ever. Budgets never go down.
I think part of the problem is the lack.
What am I paying for here? Why is it so expensive in Tocqueville for this water?
I can't remember the base rates of other cities.
So Wayne, it'd be nice if you could make sure you stay through the whole meeting and listen to the discussion that is held between all of us today about some of your concerns and issues. I'm sure they'll be addressed. Okay, but your point is well taken.
But it's falling on deaf ears and you know why. I need to know the truth. I need to see the documentation. There's too many versions of what we want. I mean, you know that's happening. Just give it to us straight, but real. That's all I'm asking. Just be honest with your citizens and don't hurt us. Because right now I feel like you're just grabbing the number, like grabbing $1.50 to charge for administration fee or
for a building fee. Just need the documentation, see it.
Anyone else?
So, Darren, we were, maintain West, I just, there's a couple of things, this, rural water required to meet that. There are other funding sources out there besides this one loan. You get the water, you get the loan to use, there's some other forms of funding that you don't have to meet that. I think maybe we ought to look at those before we just jump to that one source of funding. And the other thing we're talking about, yes, we needed a new tank, for a long time. That's kind of why we have that depreciation fund every year. I would hope that we're still paying, we're not, $150,000 depreciation, but yes, I agree, depreciation is there. I would, and I, have you looked at other funding sources other than the
Anyone else? Comments from board at this time? Okay, we're moving out of the public hearing and into our business. Okay, first item of business, a discussion and possible action on a zone change application submitted by Bryant 30 LLC for tax ID parcel T 3126. Current zoning is M1, light industrial. Proposed zoning is highway commercial. Is anyone here to speak to this item?
I wasn't planning on speaking after engineering, but I'm a school teacher in Las Vegas, and we just bought a home in April. So we're getting on the weekend. So I'm on my way to a grandson's baseball game, stopped it, took some days off of that and stopped at, take it, say that this meeting was right now, and so I walked down the road, I better show up. So I wasn't prepared, but I'm one of three partners in it, so if you have any questions, I can tell you we're really excited because when I say you hear things like you guys talk about, I've looked at this future plan, the general plan for the city of Tocqueville and what the code means for the proposed commercial energy uses. I know that change is inevitable. Nobody necessarily always embraces change. There's going to be some pressure coming in. You've got transportation and all that stuff going on. It's going to have, this is going to be minimal effect on the city. In fact, it'll be a tax base. Here's shape right now. So this one that should be talking, he knows all the particulars of this.
Okay.
So if you have any questions or anything I can help you, any concerns, I guess between the chicks, now we can make that sense.
Okay, so this is out at Browse, okay. Did you have something prepared you wanted to address the council with today? Okay. Any questions from the council at this point?
So staff, I'm reading in the notes, I'm sorry, not staff, planning commission voted unanimously to recommend approval.
We did.
And I read some comments here, but what was the general feedback?
Really, there weren't. We had one somewhat negative comment, and that was about concern about traffic in downtown Tocqueville, which this would.
Yeah, this is about the Browse exit.
Right, and strictly the zone change, so what they're changing for, and if you're looking for what highway commercial is intended to be, this is what highway commercial is, this type of area is what it's intended for.
So it's going from M1 to highway commercial.
Correct. It's about 24 acres, 23.9 acres.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
If I could also, we do have, we'd like on goal is in place, and of course, from the RV park, and have it be the pleasure of, looking at your future plan to try to keep the south, southern Utah, western town type flavor. And we also would like to eventually put in like a big barn that we can use to make open to you guys for public events and things you guys need to use. That would be mutually beneficial that way. So I think there's a lot of, we're very community oriented on that.
Mayor, if there's no other comments by the council, we're looking for a motion, right? And so I'd move to approve item number G1.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions from the council? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Good luck.
All right, item number 2, G2, discussion and possible action on increasing culinary water rates and base gallon usage and non-irrigation water rates and base gallon usage. We've had some discussion from our public hearing. Gary, this is probably a good time for you to start the discussion with what you were interested, what you had there.
Well, first of all, what Lance had mentioned earlier, and I found out today when I made a phone call, was secondary water. The fees for secondary water can be deducted from this Magi number. And that would take it down. When I told them that we had 2 rates, 130 annually and 190 for the residential, they said to take an average. And I mentioned to them that not everybody was on the system. And they said if the majority of the town's on the system, then you can use that average. So with that in mind, that would take it down to $53.32 being the Magi number. So I, as a resident, and I think that everybody on the council is in favor of keeping rates as low as we can possibly keep them. So it's not that we're trying to go up, but knowing that, we can get that down to $53, and knowing that we haven't looked at other sources. And the other thing that I looked at was the fact that when does this have to take place? And we don't have to have that in place right now. If we need the funding, or if we're looking for a grant, we can apply and not be at the Magi number. But it would be very helpful if we were moving toward, if we were taking action now to move toward getting to that Magi number, but we don't necessarily have to be there when an application is submitted. So if we never decide to take advantage of a grant opportunity through the available sources, then we never have to consider this again. So the second thing that we have in mind is the fact that if a decision is made and a loan is granted to the city, or a grant is awarded, then what we can do is we have about a year before funding takes place. And that's the point when we have to be at the Magi number. So this is important for us to know this information, but we don't have to make a decision tonight to be at the Magi number. I think we need to work in that direction tonight, though. There was a story that I was talking to someone about today in Gunderson. They kept city council, well, nobody wants to raise rates. Nobody wants to raise rates. Nobody wants to raise rates. So finally it gets to a point they have to raise rates. They have to go up about $20. And then, like I said to Councilman Bringhurst today, where is everybody? The water rates are going up. Where is everybody? And he said, well, we'll hear from them when they get their bill. And that's exactly what happened in Gunderson. Okay, the phones went off the hook at the city offices because everyone's freaking out because the water bill went up and they had public notice about this. And so I think we need to be careful with the type of increase that we are going to move on today. The second thing is we need to now, if we're putting Magi on the shelf for a while, what we really need to look at was the first motivating thing that caused us to talk about a rate increase, and that is the budget, and that is the expenses that the city is going through on the water. And so we've been subsidizing it. We've been losing money historically. And historically, we've been in the same boat as Gunnison. We've been putting it off because nobody wants to have a water rate increase. And so I looked at, and this is your department, Councilman Brinkhurst. So, you need to correct me if you feel I'm inaccurate with some of these figures. But I'm looking at the report that we received in April for the 9 months on the city budget through March 31 of 2021. The water department looks like year-to-date, they're at $238,857, excluding the depreciation that needs to be paid. That averages $26,539 a month. Now, that's probably a little lower than what we're at now because the health benefits came into play towards the latter part of the fiscal year. But if you look at that, let's say $26,500 a month times 12 months, our annual forecast would be about $318,000. And when you add the depreciation and the impact fee expense, that's another $155,000. Puts us at about $473 on a conservative estimate. So I'm saying $490 is where we would probably land. So the question is that I have, and I don't know how the other people, the other members of the council feel, but I'm wondering if this goal of $530,000 that we're trying to reach could possibly go down to $490,000. And on the worksheet, if we took into account $12,000 from about 67 people, households that will enroll in the Heights area for $130 annually, that would put the worksheet at about $480,000, which is what we would need to move forward. So I'm proposing a base rate of $50, and I don't know who can. Dana, can you pull up the worksheet and we can see how the numbers out, and then the council members.
463, 338.
$50.
Yeah, $50. And then if the high would be 10,000 gallons, is that range 1, 10,000? Yeah. I'm proposing that we increase the range 2 to $4 and range 3 to $6. And then the last range to $8. It's $1 higher per thousand. 4, 6, and 8. And those that need more water are just going to have to pay a little more money, and I know I'm going to be one of them.
Does that factor in additional culinary water to be used by those that don't have secondary, other than the $130?
It factors in the base rate that they'd have to pay.
Okay.
But if they go over that, it doesn't factor that in, and we don't factor that in that much either when we go over that certain amount.
Well, I had a thought on that, on the Tocqueville Heights. When I talked to Keen about this today, just a thought I had is instead of, the 135 or whatever dollars it is, 8 months, I've got it written out. So you got March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Those are the 8 months for water.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea was March through May, you only give them 20,000 gallons extra a month instead of 30,000 gallons. June, July, and August, the hot months, you go 30,000, and then back September, October, you do 20,000 gallons each. because those are the hot months.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking instead of doing a lumped rate of $135, they have to come in and pay it, they could sign up for it. And I'm not sure what this will do to the staff. I haven't run this by
Right.
staff yet. But make it a $25 a month addition to have that extra water. It'd come up to $200. It'd be more than the 135, but you're getting a lot of water for $25 extra a month for those households. Instead of having them come up with a lump sum, they just add $25 to their monthly bill. So just thoughts.
Well, you're right. I think most of the people in town right now are not using as much secondary water or going to need
Right.
as much culinary water as they will in July and August.
Exactly. So you do 20,000 for the first 4 months, give them 3 months of, or 3 months and then 4 months, 3 months of 30,000 gallons, and then go back to 20,000 gallons for the last 2 months. And I don't know how hard that's going to be to track. I just don't know. So I don't know how our meter.
Well, to track or to bill or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
I mean, we should be able to track it with the meters.
Right. You can do that, no problem. There you go. Just thoughts, and I'm just trying to come up with ways, instead of somebody coming in here paying the $135, $140 up front, just tack on $25 a month for those 8 months. Right.
So here's a hypothetical. And it's probably way too complicated to even consider. My wife and I live in a house, just the two of us. I mean, we have company from time to time. We still have a 10,000 gallon base. We use about, when we have family at home, we use about maybe 3,500 of it. So 6,500 gallons of water that I pay for that doesn't get used. Is there any way that I could personally, if I wanted to, donate that to keep the base rate down for somebody, or to allow them to use more water if they need it and not get charged the extra rate? Like I say, it's probably impossible to track, but we track it.
The problem is that the base rate needs to go up.
Well, the base rate would stay the same.
Well, right now it's at $35, isn't it?
I know. No, the base rate would stay the same as this. The base
Oh,
rate shouldn't go up.
$50.
Yeah. I'm not saying we shouldn't raise that. I'm just saying I've got extra water to give away that I'm not using, that I pay for. So is there any way that can be used, that it can be?
It is being used right now. I'm afraid to tell you, I'm using it.
So are you going to write me a check? You know what I'm saying, though. There's a
Right,
lot of people
right.
in town that are in the same situation.
There are.
We don't use 10,000 gallons.
We have a lot of senior citizens
So-
that are in that category. The other thing that I was looking at is range one, putting the high at $5, or pardon me, the high at 5,000. And then like I think originally, Ty might have had it where range one was only 5,000. And then we went up to 10,000 gallons for range two, and it was like $2 that they were charging over that on the original worksheet.
Well, if you don't stay at 10,000 gallons, you really penalize people with young families, big families. And they are using more water, so it's not a penalty, but it sticks in my craw.
Motion, yeah.
We haven't had a motion. We don't have a rate yet. Well, you straighten us out, Wayne.
If it's black, it's black, it's white, it's white. I'm gonna tell you how it is. I'm not here to offend any of you. I'm sure Ty is boiling because he thought he had this mapped out. I guess I'm stuck in maybe the 60s and 70s, because this town was mainly older folks, like my folks and everybody else. And we can afford it, you can all afford $50, $55. Some people really couldn't. I can afford it. I don't care if it's $100, if that's what you want. But there's so many people you're gonna hurt with raising it so much, so fast. Pick your base, try it out. If it doesn't work, then agree with that. But You're the ones that got to live with all the backlash and people talking, and you gotta make the right decision. You gotta be a frugal government, not one that makes rules, you need to do rules.
That's part of the problem, like Gunnison, we haven't raised rates. If we would have done $1 or $2 a year for the last 10 years, we'd be sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, you can sit with money in your bank, but
Right.
you're not supposed to be doing it.
Well, we could have a depreciation fund. Depreciation fund. We need that.
Be careful with, I'm just saying, just be careful. I'm really voicing because, believe it or not, I care every inch about what this town does and how it does and how it functions. And I watch everything that goes on. And sometimes I'm mystified with what I find out, and it's just, I'm here to, I don't like people like my dad and mom having to pay that kind of water bill. They don't have to cover it, they both live on Social Security. That's what it's about. It's not about the $47,000 people. That makes up a few. You're getting all these people coming from out of town with all kinds of money. They don't care if it's 100, but they're raising your whatever you call it, your IMAP and your MAP. But the basic whole part of the town is here. Don't make that kind of money.
Wayne, the public comment time is kind of past, but I want you to know something too.
Oh, I thought you said the public comment. You can't comment on each item.
But you have been. We allowed it. You're probably over your 3 minutes, but I just want to say something to you too. You're not the only one in the room that has those kind of feelings.
I know.
Every one of these guys on the board do.
That's right.
We're not excited about raising these rates, but the fact of the matter is we have to pay for our water and we have to keep the city in the black. And we have to have the depreciation fund. Those are givens. We have to go there. So we have to fund it. And the city can't fund it without the citizens. And, it rubs me the wrong way, just the way it does you. And it does every one of these guys too. This is not something we're excited about doing. It's a hard thing. That's why it's taken us this many months to get here.
Nobody's accusing you. I told you that right there.
Well, you are. You have.
You need documentation.
You have accused us.
You got to document and stand behind it. He just come up with something totally different.
He did, and we haven't announced a rate yet.
When I spent my entire day today working on a way that we can help reduce that base rate today. I know that Ty has spent eons and eons of hours trying to find a way. Pardon? Yeah, I know. And our objective isn't to make money. Our objective is the same as your objective, is to keep the base rate down as low as we can for the citizens of this community, especially those people that can't afford it. So I'm with you.
You're not. But you might be defending me. I don't think he was trying to defend
It's entirely possible.
I accept black and white, and that's how I hand it out. So
Okay.
That's a 6-minute view.
That was probably my 3 minute review.
I'm just fighting for the city in a different level, with different people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody know what the appreciation fund balance is?
It's right around $800,000, Mike. About 800. It's in that range. That's a round number for sure. But I think last time we looked, it was over 700, but I don't even know if it's quite at 800 yet.
Have we been able to put the full depreciation amount that's budgeted into?
So we have not, and we've offset it coming out of the general fund, so that we're in essence subsidizing the water. So there's a couple things, Mayor, and I'll keep it short. First off, the Magi, whatever you want to call it, that we're talking about, it's based off the average water rate. So you need to keep in mind that the base rate does not have to cover that dollar amount. So if you take the average water rate of the citizens based off what we've provided, it's at like $69. So keeping all things equal, just know that the base rate does not have to equal that. Darren Lefevre talked about other funding sources. I've been around long enough. It takes about every funding source we have to get to wherever we can. So we have to be able to comply with the Magi rules. We have to be able to go to rural water. We have to go to CIB. We have to use all of them. And we've done it for years, and that would be our intention. And the citizens should know that's how we go about it. This just happens to be one. So there's lots of options. What started this whole process is we weren't able to fund our depreciation, and our depreciation was identified as $300,000. As we took time and broke that down, we had a lengthy conversation about whether or not
It's right for the citizens that live here today to pay for depreciation on a system that'll carry into 50 years, and that's what it's based off of. So we have reduced that rate down. We've taken that rate from $300,000 in depreciation to $150,000 in depreciation to help bring this down. Then we did an experiment. We took 8 months worth of time sample and we said, all right, we're going to account for everything that's done and put it in the departments that it needs to go to. And we did that. And then we took that number, we brought it back, we broadcasted it over the year and then said, hey, this is what it's going to cost. So, Gary, you had brought up the idea of cutting that goal down to $480,000. 490. So roughly $40,000 change. The water line break, for example, on Springs or on Berry Lane, it's going to be a $40,000 bill. So it takes one deal to really blow that. And I just feel like where we've already knifed that thing down tight, it really makes me a little uncomfortable at what that's going to look like in the end. So, I mean, just an example, it's one thing and then we're in trouble. So there's a million different ways to slice and dice this. The truth is we don't need to be at $66. We started trying to get to the $530 and that's where the $60 came from. All of the rates that we have proposed thus far around the $50 base rate would cover us on our Magi so that we're covered because it's an average. So I think if you base it around there and kind of decide where you want to hit, whether you want to get to the goal of 530, if you want to change the goal of 530, wherever you sit, I'm good with, but we do need to get this thing done because if we go another year without a solution, this rate's going to be $55 or $65. So more than anything, we just need to move the needle, and we haven't done that since we did the Heights project, which was so $1 every year at 14 years puts us in a different spot.
So we haven't had a rate increase in 14 years?
Since we did the Heights.
Okay.
So whatever that date was.
Lance.
Well, net depreciation, it was set at 150,000, 7 years.
Well, so step back, Lance, because we paid Alpha to redo it and come up with what it should be. And when they recalculated it, they went to 300 as the depreciation.
All the new subdivisions come in.
Yep.
Every line becomes now an ownership priority. So our values increase. So your depreciation has to increase with your value of the product to replace it. So that's all there's.
So as we grow, our depreciation's gonna have to go up.
Depreciation has to go up. Unfortunately, your system gets bigger. So
Right, exactly. But we have more people, we have more income, we should be able to still up if our base rate and everything covers it.
if it covers it, then it has to almost go up every year as this growth comes in. But it is.
Mayor, I have some thoughts I want to share.
Please.
So the amount of water that we have available to us by the water district is limited, right? Then we got to start paying for it. And so we've come up with ways to minimize that amount that we'd have to pay through trying to acquire some other water, which would be cheaper than what the water district's up there. So we've got some good leads, not finalized yet, but it's good leads. And that'll be cheaper water than what we're paying to the district once we get over our threshold, our allotment. And I've looked closely, and several people have, at how would we pay for that. And there are a lot of, I've looked at multiple sources out there for grant money. And as near as I can tell, we can come up with probably around 50%, maybe a little more than 50% of the purchase price in grant money. But that means the rest of it's got to come up by loan, either private money, which there's private money out there. They'll gladly loan on something like this. I've talked to them personally. There's also this, I like the name Magi because it kind of gives it this wisdom thing. But anyway, there's the government money, but they put strings attached to it. Okay, but really their numbers though it's really hard to beat that loan rate. That interest rate is so cheap that it's far better for the citizens of Tokerville as long as we meet their statutory minimums, which is what we were talking about. So I look at that as a factor in determining what our rates will be, but not as the factor, the magi rate though. That's what I mean by that, is it's a factor, but it's not the factor. Then we have to balance this off. We have people that live in the heights who don't have secondary water, but they also are the ones that opted out a long time ago to not pay for the secondary water. Yet they opted out based on the information I had before, which was, hey, well, we can still water our grass and water our trees and have a garden. And okay, we have the elderly, like your parents, Wayne, that it's not easy. They're on a fixed budget and a very small budget at that. Most of them are, and so to double their water rate is not an easy thing. It's not an easy pill to swallow. Then you have these big families. They've got 4 or 5 children, if not 9 or 10 children, and they use a lot of water. I know, because I had a big family, and it's not so big now, but when they come back to visit, the amount of water we use almost doubles in a couple of weeks' time. And it's amazing how much water you use. And then you got those that want to conserve. There's just 2 people living at home, and they want to conserve, and so they're doing all they can to conserve every drop of water. Do we want to make them pay more when they're conserving? You have all these different interests that have to get balanced one way or another. Plus, I don't want to see the rates go up. I have to pay for it. I should have disclosed that at the beginning as a conflict of interest, right? I'm the one that I have to pay on this too, just like everyone else does. But ultimately, we have to do something. And what is that something? And I really like what Councilman Sipp said, which was, for the Heights people, maybe we can put something in where they pay like everybody else does, but they have to pay to the city, not to the Conservancy District, because that water comes to the city's pipelines. And so they pay a couple $100 a year extra, just like everyone that has secondary water does. Then they get that secondary water. I like that idea. I think that's a good kind of a balancing of those interests. But I haven't yet seen how we can strike a compromise for those that have been living here in Tokerville for a long time, especially the elderly. And I guess what keeps coming back to me is some kind of a different zone rates. And I see a lot of cities do this. They have different rates for different zones. And so, for example, the new developments come in, they're going to pay a much different rate because they've got a whole new system that has to be depreciated out, and they need to start funding that sooner rather than later. Plus, their water is going to be more expensive. But for the people that are already here and established and been here for a long time, well, I think there needs to be some kind of increase because, frankly, it's not fair that system hasn't been properly depreciated over time. So they need to pay a little bit more, but should it be as much as the new group that's coming in? And part of me is like, no, I don't think they should. I think there should be some kind of a split there. It's kind of different types of zones. So my suggestion is if we could find a way to, and I'm looking at the proposed resolution, which I like to some degree, but I would really like to see something that takes into consideration the heights and something that takes into consideration that people have been here for a long time in the existing town of Tokerville, that they don't feel it as much. If we can create different zones like that, then that would be, I think, a good balance and a happy medium.
Yes, sir.
I tried to see. Just a couple of, I do appreciate everything you guys do. I hope nobody told you the job is going to be easy when they don't like it. I have a real difficulty with treating one citizen of Tokerville different than another citizen of Tokerville. I know the heights, we keep talking about it. If you're going to do a zone for the new homes, a zone for the heights, a zone for the old part of the city, we're all citizens of Tokerville. We ought to be treated the same. You choose where you're going to live in the city. If you want to live where there's irrigation water, buy a house where there's irrigation. That's what I do. And my point is, I am very much, I don't treat anybody different than anybody else. You know, water is a tax. Any money you bring in is a tax. Everybody should be taxed equally. And if you start setting things up different, you're holding people to different. You're saying you're to this standard and you're to this standard. and I absolutely disagree. So I would get that water rate to where it needs to be to cover your costs, even if it's a big jump this time. And I would like to see something in your budget requirement that requires you to raise it to cover your costs every year. That way, we're not facing a $20 increase. It's not a tough decision for you if it's built in. It is what it is, and people will deal with $1 a year. But a $20 hit per month, I got a daughter with 3 kids that lives here, where every dollar counts. Taking this hit, it would have been a little easier each year. Taking this big a hit in 1 year is a pretty tough hit. Apologies.
Yes.
I have just a couple of quick questions. First of all, was it our intention tonight to have a motion and vote on this resolution and therefore, move forward? Or have we reached a point in this discussion and realizing that we aren't ready to put forth a motion and lock it all down and do something about it? If we intend to vote on it, then we should probably have a motion, vote on the resolution, cuss and discuss it any more we want, and then do something. Otherwise, we should table it, for another month and come back, 30 days from now with a hardcore, solution to this problem. Of course, there's no hardcore solution. But right now, we're just doing a lot of back and forth, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of total agreement on this. So if we're going to have a resolution, then somebody make a motion and we'll discuss it by Robert's Rules of Orders and then move on.
But you guys know the number you got to get. Whether you want to do it or not.
Well, there's been some augmentation to that number though, so.
There is
We need to decide which number we want to hit and how we're going to hit it.
My question is, Ty's been playing with the calculator. Do you have a recommendation, Ty?
Well, I have 2 rates figured right now, and both of these meet what we need to meet, except the goal number. Neither one of them meets the goal number. So if you use $50 as a base rate with the same, you can see it up there, with the same tiered program that we have, it becomes a $13.79 rate to our citizens on a monthly basis on average. And that would cover what we need to, but it would leave us short. It leaves us at 4, I don't have the number, because multiple of us can adjust that screen right now. So it's back to $50. So at $50, it's $478,874, which leaves us roughly, what is that, $50,000 shy.
478?
478, yeah, that's what's up there right now. And Dana, if you want to just switch that back to $55 on both of those. It puts us at $517,874. If you go to $55, that puts our average our average rate at $66.39. If you add the irrigation, it's $11 for irrigation. That's $77.39, well within the whatever that name is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it's an $18.79 rate increase. So none of these reflect on average. I mean, keep that in mind. I'm taking the total, dividing it by the 650 ERUs that were used to calculate this and dividing it back out. So.
And you're using the $4, $6, and $8.
Yep. What's in the sheet? I haven't changed those. So
now, in addition to that, what would you project the Heights revenue is going to be? Would you say another $12,000?
Well, so it all depends on how you do it. I think if you do Justin Sipp's method, where it's just going to be charged, Councilman Sips, it's obviously going to affect this quite a bit. I think if you gave the citizens an opportunity.
I was going to opt in or opt out.
Yeah, so that was going to be my other thought. If you allow them to opt in, I think you're going to see half is what you're going to see. So if there's 65 connections up there, you're probably going to see 30 of them that decided it. Maybe not even that many. I mean, I drive through the Heights, and it's really hard to kind of pick and choose who I would think would be there.
That's about $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's not nothing, but it's pretty small. So those are as I worked back through that, every rate that's up here right now takes care of the financial side that we were talking about. It's really whether or not you guys are in agreement with the goal, with what we said is depreciation and what we project our costs to be in the water fund. And I think the projections that I provided were fairly accurate based off of the 8-month history, which we had. But in that 8 months, we didn't have a $30,000 water leak or water break, so there's going to be some anomalies and there's going to be things that are going to hit us right in the mouth. And that's just how it works.
I think I was told that the pipe that broke was from the 70s.
Wayne
It's an
remembers
old
putting it
pipe,
in.
and there's a lot of those probably around, so, we're going to see.
The resolution that's in our packet, I shouldn't call it packet, but in our documents, it does provide for non-irrigation users, which would be, I presume that means people like the Heights,
Yep.
right? And so they would get the first 35,000 gallons at no extra charge from the months of March through October. And then after that, they're going to pay $3 per every 1,000 gallons from 35,001 up to 40,000. So it does take into consideration the Heights, right? It's giving them extra water, but it doesn't have a fee in there for them to acquire that, right? The extra, like that. Yes, but if we added a fee there of $200 a year, like Councilman Sip was suggesting, then that would sort of offset that, right? That makes them about par with everybody else.
I think they need to be charged the same fee. If it's $3, it's $3 for both. It's 4, it's 4. It's just a matter of whether you defer it to after 35,000 or 30,000, where that sits.
Yeah, I see the point. Yeah, then I can see why. Yeah. So those numbers would all be the same. They would just get up to 35,000 gallons during those months.
So is this only the Heights or is this anybody in Tocqueville that doesn't accept?
So Dan, this is a great question, and we've talked about that at length, because right now every time we say the Heights, because that's where the most citizens are, but we also have Troy Walls and Westfield. No, Troy Walls has secondary. They put secondary in Troy Walls. It's there, and it's just waiting for the district to turn it on, which it will have water in it according to the district. We talked about that in TSWS. Yeah, they'll have water. They'll have secondary there. But there isn't. What's the Heights? What's the Heights, or not the Heights? The street out in Westfields that doesn't have. Thank you, Mulberry. So it would.
Between grass and lake homes.
So and that's just if you put it in here that it's open to all non-irrigation, then we're going to have that cascade through all of town, and this will have to be revisited. So in some ways, I feel like if we continue down this path, we have to limit it to what is in existence now. You cannot continue it out into perpetuity.
It's got to be where it's not possible to pay an impact fee to the district and hook onto secondary. I mean, if it's there in front of your house and you don't have it, then you have the option there. So I don't.
So, yeah, I think this would be during the months of the non-irrigation as of the date of this resolution, right? So there's.
Son, there's going to be irrigation. Today I was told Leeds well has dropped 10%. Washington City's well has dropped. Our aquifer is going down. And our TSWS contract's due in another 6-7 years. But for this new development, they're planning on using the spring water to what we have in excess. But once that excess is gone, the only water that Tocqueville has is our spring, which is our irrigation water. And if you guys want to look at it realistically, I would almost tell you that irrigation water is going to go to Culinary. And it's put it off, allowing, I think you need to deal with the elephant in the room, look at our water and say, how valuable is our water?
How much you can't store it.
We're going to be here in another 2 years saying, if this drought continues, which they're projecting it's going to continue, there's going to be, TSWS is going to have to make some serious decisions. Like Cedar City already is.
So TSWS is for a different board. I think as we sit as a city council, the discussion really comes down to this water rate and what we want to do for the citizens who don't have it in front of their home.
That's really all we can do.
So
So you said that either or 50 or 55 could work tied?
Well, they cover the financial aspect, the guidelines given by the state. Either one of those numbers will cover that. What it really comes down to is where we sit with the goal number of 530,000, how close we want to be to that. And if you go at 50, we're short by $50,000. You're short $50,000. If you go to 55, we're short $14,000, $13,000.
Would you reiterate for us what factors make up that goal number?
So in this is the cost to operate the water system. It's the cost of maintenance. It has the depreciation of $150,000 in it, and that's it. It's pretty stripped down, and it was based off of 8 months of just water department costs that were tracked very carefully by staff. So yeah, I mean, that is one element that wasn't part of that, but that's okay. We'll have years where there isn't any. We'll have years where we have 30 of them. I mean, it's just kind of how it goes.
Okay.
So I think if council, if I were to propose a water rate, Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion, Mayor, that we would change the base rate to $55 base rate. We would leave the stepped at $4 for 10 to 15, $6 for 15 to 20, and then 20 up is at $8. I would also propose that we would charge a one-time fee for, I'm trying to figure out how we would identify those areas. Well, let's see.
You're talking about an annual fee?
An annual fee for those citizens that live in an area without, an existing area without secondary water. They should be assessed a $130 fee that's due at the first of the year.
Without access to.
I'm not typing in it.
I'm typing it. You want the language, right?
Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Without access to color or something.
But I do believe it needs to be an existing.
As finished subdivisions, we can't.
Those
It's
properties
not to
without
be expanded.
irrigation in a finished subdivision as of the date of this resolution.
Thank you, Heath. And it would give them, go ahead.
Lots.
Well, so it would be the same fee schedule that TSWS does. It's $130 for a half acre or less, acre or more, or half acre to an acre, it's $190. Due at the first of the year. For that, they would receive, and council, I was gonna go with 30,000 gallons for that, for those months. That mirror the water, that mirror TSWS.
So are you saying that, are you anticipating that would come out in their tax bill?
So I'm saying that Dana staff would have to bill them, send out a bill in January. If they pay that bill, they get the gallons. If they don't pay it, they don't get the gallons. And I don't know what that's gonna look like. Dana and I will have to, she'll probably have me out working on it. But that, Mayor, that would be an increase to our citizens on average of about $18.79. The other thing that I think we need to add into this is that this should be reviewed and assessed annually. So that is a mouthful. Hopefully we got it clear, but.
You captured that? You okay? Your ears are smoking just a little bit, are you okay?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second then. Is there any other discussion on it?
It would start, well, it would be, yeah, May 1st.
No other discussion? Let's see. We're not spending any money, so this is not a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I didn't say anything, so I'll say my aye now.
Okay. All right, motion carries unanimously then.
I said
No.
aye.
He said aye. All right, we'll move on then to item number 3, discussion and possible action on the fee schedule, culinary water rates, and base gallon usage. It kind of,
Just went wrong with the resolution, right?
yeah.
By motion that we approve item G2,
Modifications made in.
modifications made to the resolution that Heath is now typing up.
Have a second?
Second.
Yes, we do. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 4, discussion and possible action on business license term and payment dates.
Mayor, we discussed this in the work meeting, that if they go too long, they just lose their everything. If they don't pay it, there's a fee. I think we went over that quite a bit. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I thought that's a good plan. So I motion that we approve item G4, business license term and payment dates.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 5, discussion and possible action on modification of specs and standards, road cross section.
So Mayor, I'll take this one. We discussed this at length. The feedback we received from the citizens was in regards to adding a multi-use or active transportation lane, bike lane. You can quickly review that. We have added that to one side of the road. It basically starts at roadways that are greater than 50 feet wide, and it provides a 3-foot bike lane. So we made that modification, and keeping in mind that this is a striping plan. So just because it's on there doesn't mean we put it in, but where it makes sense and we tie our active transportation plan together with the trails, we would be able to identify this, and we have a method to do that. So Mayor, with those changes and modifications being made, I would move that we would approve. Let's see, item G5, the modifications to standards and specs.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any comments?
Ty, when would this go into effect? Can we start doing this?
Immediately. Yeah, so if there's an existing application in, it doesn't fall under that, but anything that comes in from the state forward, it falls into that category.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action. Number 6, officers and employees, city administrator.
So we needed.
Lengthy discussion.
We did. There was a couple items that came up that we needed to have conversation as a council. So Justin, if you'll help me remember, we had talked about specifically, we have the mayor's fee or payment is $500 plus a $500 for managing within the city. And we have not discussed that moving forward, what that looks like. Does that go away with the city administrator? And that needs to be a conversation. As we hire in a city administrator, are we going to take the mayor's salary back down to the $500? That $500 would then be available.
That's my understanding.
Okay. So that was one of the items we discussed. We talked about, Heath, you were here. It seems like we were still wanting to get clarity on.
Well, we talked about the difference between the city administrator and the city manager, and whether or not we want to go the route of city administrator versus the city manager. I was explaining to them, Mayor, that a city administrator is an employee working under your authorization and direction. It is appointed by you. They are appointed by you with the advice and consent of the council, but they're not. A city manager is beholden to the entire council, appointed by the council in that situation. There is some differences.
So Heath, if you'd bet, so when you say appointed by the council and answers to the council, where does the mayor's position fall in that? Because he's not a voting member, so he would still be the point of direction for okay.
He would, but for instance, if the city council decided that they wanted a certain policy kind of pushed forward in the future and all different things, and the mayor were to tell the city administrator, disregard what the council says, I'm your boss. You do what I say, then there's a conflict there. Because he works for the mayor. If we have a city manager and he reports to and implements the policies of the council, not the policies of the council as interpreted by the mayor, then he reports to you, and that's how it does it. There's no perfect way. I would tell you that the vast majority of the city managers I'm only aware of one city administrator in Washington County, and that's Adam Bowler in Enterprise that I know of. I don't know if there's any other city administrators in the county.
Isn't Vic Levert?
Yeah,
Kyle
Levert. He's an administrator.
And I've heard that more cities have been leaning towards going towards administrators rather than managers. Just a comment that's come in for that. So I think that's why, as a council, in the past, we decided on administrator rather than manager. Is that correct?
Well, what spurred this up was trying to really identify what the differences were to make sure that we all understood, all right, this is the path we're going down and this is why. So,
And if the mayor and the city council on the same page, it doesn't matter. You know, that's the way it, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think the mayor has a responsibility to be on the same page with the city council, whether he likes it or not. I mean, a personal opinion shouldn't enter into a lot of those.
Occasionally you do get provoked mayors.
Yeah, well, I can see
I've
that.
worked for a couple. Not in this city, but.
Which one would give the best continuity to the city?
Yeah, I mean, they're in, just because they're beholden to a board, there is more likely continuity in a city manager than a city administrator. Frankly, if you're looking at this from long term and you're saying, okay, as residents, as business owners, as developers, as everyone works with the city, where are you going to find hopefully the most consistency in application of policy and not broad swings in policy changes and stuff like that? I would say likely the city manager over city administrator.
Question, in regard to the two, if something needs to happen expeditiously, can the mayor then direct the city manager to,
Absolutely.
or does he have to go back to
Executive officer, you are the chief executive officer of the.
So it wouldn't slow us down? Okay. That's all I was worried about. Because things are gonna happen.
and I think, Mayor, that point was brought up from, it seems like when we had a discussion about it, some citizens have brought up, let's identify what this is. Do you actually know what you're doing? And,
I
It's
have,
a-
I
it's a
have one,
unique-
I have one concern that doesn't, a manager or administrator. In our job description, it had zone, or,
City administrator.
the city administrator had,
But it also says the answers to the mayor and the city council.
right. But the code enforcement is part of this job description. That's just something I've been thinking about, code enforcement. We need a city manager and a city administrator that's, I mean, face it, we want the citizens to like this person and to get along with them. If we make him the code enforcement, I don't know how that's gonna go over.
That should.
So, that's probably, it's on our description for the job, right? It's code enforcement.
I don't think there's any way, I don't think there's any way we can expect the entire community to get along with this guy.
Well, no, but I don't want this guy to get a brick through his window either. Then he'll be leaving town, we gotta find another one.
Just one comment, you can put it responsible for.
Responsible for, I have no
Not
problem with that.
necessarily on the street with.
Right.
Right, so and I'm wondering, maybe we ought to hire someone for that, maybe a off-duty police officer from Hurricane, or
Good
someone that's
idea.
gonna live here to
Good
think
idea.
about our code and zone, our code enforcement.
That will give it a skill thing and somebody to complain to.
Right.
About your code enforcement.
Exactly.
Isn't there something on discussion item number 8 regarding
Yeah.
that?
we're going to be talking about that as well.
So anyway, just a thought on that job.
So I think, Mayor, with item G6, the ordinance, we needed to have the ordinance in place for either an administrator or manager so that we can move forward with employing somebody.
And I'm at this point with the clarification, I'm good with either one.
So I wonder, Heath, should we leave it so that it could be an administrator or a manager? Or do we need to identify in the ordinance what type that position would be?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do need to identify one or the other.
Okay.
I see no reason not to have it identified as a city manager under the explanation that he gave us.
So with that, and if there's any other council or from the guidance from the council, I would move to approve business item G6 with the modifications that will be directed to our attorney to change this to a city manager instead of a city administrator.
And to have under the responsibility to have him oversee
Code enforcement, yes.
perform code enforcement.
There you go. That would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Oh. Well, if they're gonna accept it as administrator, hopefully they'll accept it as manager.
There's that other duties as assigned thing in there.
And at this point, they're not hired, so they, I mean, it will be a point of conversation if they're not comfortable with
I'm
it.
gonna be honest with you, I think that, someone looking to apply is likely more willing to apply for city manager position because they feel slightly more insulated from the political movement, because it takes a majority of a council to terminate them, as opposed to the off hair of an angry mayor one day. I'm not saying.
What you gonna say there?
I'm just saying, but you understand what I'm trying to say, though. I mean, if I understand the differences between the two, and I've gone and I've got my master's in public administration, and I'm working for a small city, and I'm looking to upgrade and become the city administrator, or city manager at some up and coming growing city, and I see it advertised as city manager, I'm probably more inclined, even if the pay isn't quite as good, because I could go and make, if I could go and make $5,000 more, move my family here, and I'm subject to being terminated only by the mayor, as opposed to being subject to being terminated by a majority of the council. I'm probably more inclined, it seems more stable to me to possibly accept slightly less and to be the city manager versus being the city manager.
And just so you know, I am also not comfortable with having the ability to terminate this person without the council.
You want, and I know, and I'm not, this is nothing but, because I know the way the mayor has dealt with just staff in general and everything else. He never wants to be the end decision. So I don't think that's the point. No, I don't mean like the indecision as far as employing.
That's twice, okay?
No, my point is that you involve the council in staff issues, and it wouldn't be any different, I don't think, but you just never know, because people run for office and get elected.
Well, I made a motion, and it was a
I have
long time ago.
a discussion item on the motion. Is there a term of contract involved with this?
You know, that was part of the
That was
lengthy
part of the discussion we had
conversation.
last week.
And it was set to renew annually, Heath, isn't that what we talked about?
We talked about both.
And then we wanted,
Minimum 2 years.
yes,
2 years.
yep. So I would have to modify my motion to,
I guess I don't see a reason to have, and I'm sure Heath will, because, he's beating me up today. I don't see a reason to have a term of contract necessarily in this position if they could be terminated by the city council
It's an interesting
for
point.
cause, for whatever.
Yeah, you can either way. We can, even in a contract, the way the contract would be written is that they have a term, but they can be terminated for cause. And we will identify cause: willful misconduct, illegal conduct, misappropriation of city funds.
So what's the purpose of a term ending then and having to be reappointed?
I think it's for security if someone claims.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be for their security not to have that.
well,
So
so
you
I,
can terminate them before the term's up.
You can, but
but there was consequences to the city. So if we
There is consequences.
terminated them before their term was up, then there's some monetary
there is.
reimbursement to them for them moving
It
here.
says in the
whatever was
event the
possible.
services
That's
of
what
the
that
city
was.
administrator, which we can put the city manager, are otherwise terminated by the city, in the event that services of the city administrator are terminated for cause, including but not limited to malfeasance in office and or commission of a crime, moral turpitude, city shall have no obligation to pay any severance pay to the city administrator. He shall only be entitled to receive such earned pay and allowances as that of other employees of the city. In the event that the services of the city administrator are otherwise terminated by the city shall pay the city administrator a lump sum payment equal to 3 months' salary plus 1 additional month's salary for each year of service as city administrator up to a maximum total of 6 months. So if you just say, I don't like you, I don't like the way you dress, we're going to terminate you. It's not for cause at that point in time. Then he's entitled to, we have to think about that. How bad do we not like the way he dresses? If we don't like it enough, then we could possibly be paying up to 6 months worth of cinder.
Well, what if we don't like the way he interacts with community or developers?
Well, I think that would fall under malfeasance in office.
So now we're talking cause.
Those are not, if he's not performing his duties, that's for cause.
These are pretty much consistent terms with most executive positions in
Yes.
private industry.
Yes, it is.
Well, that was just my thought. So,
So contract deal or whether or not he has use of the city vehicle and how he uses it. Things
Yeah, there are,
That'll fall under an employment contract.
that would be under an employment contract. I think he's talking more about his term. Do we want
Yeah.
to commit to a term? I think generally you do, just because, and the reason why it goes 2 years over 1 year is because of how elections run and to carry you over for at least a period of time after an election. If new council members or mayors get put in place and they're looking to can the city manager, then, they're going to have to pay a severance. It's just,
But this is,
if there's no
okay,
cause.
but this is the ordinance, right? This is not the employment contract, this is just the ordinance where I need out the term in the ordinance, and then
Yeah, it's 2 years.
you typically see the term in the ordinance itself?
Yes, you do. Okay. 2 years with
So it's a
automatic
2-year
renewal.
term.
Unless-
is there a 6-month period where we can let them go without any cause at all?
We can put that in there.
Well, that's kind of typical. In government, yeah, probationary period.
You have to put that in the ordinance, or you have to put that in the employment contract?
Term you need to put in the ordinance, I think that is a modification of the term, so I think if we are gonna put a probationary period in there, we probably ought to put it in the ordinance.
6 months.
Probation.
I want to modify your.
Mayor, I'd move that we make those modifications to my, whatever I call it now. My motion.
City manager.
I think if he,
Manager.
I
There you
think
go.
if he fails the probationary period, that he would also have failed the other reasons for cause. So I don't know that I'd be interested in moving down here and knowing for the first 6 months my job could be
But-
bye-bye at any minute.
I don't know of any government employee that doesn't have that clause.
We had 18 months on that.
18.
Yeah, it's kind of a tenure view of getting tenure concept.
They're
It's,
not contract.
maybe you don't move your family down from Brigham City for the first 6 months. I mean, I don't know.
I usually
I'm
go
just
90
throwing
days.
things out there, having been a government employee all my life.
Can I second Ty's motion?
Would you restate the motion for us, please?
Sure.
No, that's
Item.
fine. That's fine. You don't have to.
6, modifications.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody comfortable with what we're voting on then?
I am.
So we have a motion and a second. Is this spending money? No, this is just an ordinance. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We don't set wage in this ordinance.
Well, we talked, we'll do that at another.
It's an obligation that
That's
you
what
have
it's
to
already
work
set
on.
at.
It's set at $500 plus $500 for the manager. There should be 2 separate items.
There are.
Should be.
It is. Well, I'm going to, if that was part of the motion.
Yeah, that was part of the
500 and 500. Yeah, that's what it's currently at right now. But his motion was to approve this with the modification that mayor be reduced to 500 and city manager.
And that takes place, look, I would have that take place when we hire, not instantly. Just once we get somebody, then it will take place.
Okay, item number 7, discussion of possible expenditure approval, $12,057.98 for Center Street project.
Mayor, I'll speak to this. This is the closeout for Center Street. There is, I'm trying to open it right back up just so the council, you've probably seen
We
it.
saw it.
There's 2 invoices, and those invoices for extra work. One was to complete the contract work, which was the casing hangers and some of the other invoice. Dana, please first. This was to finish contract work. You can see the items that went on along with the proposal. If you go back to the invoice above that, this was for the additional water line that we ran from the bridge to tie into where the Walls property comes in, and then the cross gutter that separates the asphalt from Perkins driveway. We added that waterway through there. So the total is $12,057.98. And Mayor, if you're ready for a motion. I'd
Any
make
discussion on that?
Oh, there you go.
All right, now we're ready for the motion.
Make a motion to approve the expenditure of $12,057.98 for the Center Street project.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, discussion on 401J2, enumeration of nuisance light trespass, and 414 enforcement.
So I missed our last meeting. Did we have a discussion about this at all?
No.
So the biggest concern is that we have residents around our community that are not in compliance with our light ordinance, particularly the nighttime lights where they're just not shielded and they're blinding. And I've driven around late at night, like between 11 o'clock at night and 1 in the morning, and the lights are just out there glowing bright as day, and I don't know why we are not enforcing those. And so my question is, I did ask this to be on the agenda, but as a discussion item only, because I want to, are we going to enforce the light ordinance, or are we not going to enforce the light ordinance? If we're not going to enforce it, then I want to get rid of it, because I don't like having a light ordinance that we don't comply with. So what do we want to do as a city council?
Have we ever sent out a notice to any resident regarding a nuisance?
We have.
Yes, and they ignore it.
And it's been ignored?
Well, I have a comment about that, if I may. Why are we singling out the light ordinance?
Well,
We don't
only because
enforce-
it's the
we
one
don't
that's,
enforce anything. Yeah.
because you got to start somewhere. And this one is a pun intended eyesore. Why do we have to have these out there? Now, there are other ordinances, yes, and we should be knocking them down. But the reason we don't do all of them at once is because we're shorthanded, right? We're a small little community, but we got to start somewhere. And that's one that it's problematic in many areas around our community, not just the ones that we hear about. There are many others around that, as I drive on, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I can see the element there, and I can see the element there. And that one's really problematic when you have your reverse camera and you're backing up. I mean, you see them all over the place. Like, well, why aren't we doing something about it? Why do we have this ordinance and we just let it sit?
I think what the policy is in the office here is that when they get 3 written complaints, that they act upon it and send out a letter to the individual. So are you asking that we start having somebody walking around at night and writing down addresses, or are you looking at enforcing complaints that come into the office?
No,
That's a good way to go to jail.
yeah, the latter. That when they come in, what are we? Because we've written letters,
Okay.
but then we've kind of stopped there. Do we want to take it further? Because our code allows us to.
The code has fines that are listed.
Do we want to do that? That's the question. Or do we want
And
to just?
the other question is, who do we want to do that?
Mhm.
The mayor.
Well, to send a fine,
No,
to mail
But I
somebody a
will.
fine,
huh?
you mail somebody a fine, stick it in the mail from city office, so.
That's true too.
So at this point, our enforcement rests on 3 people writing it down, a written complaint, and bringing it into the office. And at that point, the city starts the process, right?
Well, it goes to a letter, we send a letter, and then they come in, and then it stops.
Yeah.
Because we don't do anything after that. We've done it over and over and over and over.
They come in after receiving the letter?
Yeah, I can think back to multiple scenarios where we've sent a letter, they've come in, they
Tell us
plead
where to
their
go.
case about what's going on, they yell at us, and then it just dies. And then I just think we've got to decide as a council that we're going to move forward with what it is.
With the
and
second
keep it
step.
going.
Yep.
And once we cite them, then what?
We cite them and we tell them that if they don't, that they have a right to request a hearing on the citation. If they don't in a certain period of time, then the fine will be issued. And if they do request a hearing, then we have an administrative law judge who's been appointed. He will hear and make a decision on it. And if he upholds the citation, they're given the fine.
Let's issue some citations. Okay.
But we don't have no action on this. We just discussed and decided it's already in the ordinances, it's already in our code.
Well, I don't think we need to vote, but I think
Right.
we can recommend some action, can't we?
That's the consensus that they want.
Let's go through with the process.
Few of the biggest offenders and move forward.
Let our administrative court judge handle that kind of like that.
Yeah, that's an internal policy. There's no requirement. There's no requirement.
We don't have someone with an active position of going out and
Right. And
patrolling for
reason-
violations.
No,
and
but
stuff like that.
actually, the way the ordinance is written, any city employee
Yes,
can be assigned, and if they observe a violation,
yes.
they can.
Have a responsibility to report.
So part of the purpose of that was so that we just didn't have a neighbor call and complain
Right.
because somebody didn't put their trash can in at 11 o'clock when they did it at 10. So it was like if there was 3 written complaints about it, all right, it is a bigger deal. Let's address it. And again, that has just been a policy inside the office. It's
Well,
not even.
that's for what's coming from the citizen.
Yep.
That It is in the ordinance where a city employee, if it's observed by a city employee, it can be done. It doesn't have to be written by the city.
Can be. If there's a glaring violation.
Okay. So we don't need any action on that, but I would hope we would recommend that we follow through with the process as in the ordinance.
What's the ordinance number?
Code enforcement, I'm gonna give you
4.1-2.
It's entitled 4, chapter 1.
Okay, thank you.
Of our ordinance.
All right, that concludes the business portion of our meeting. We'll go to council reports. Mr. Sip.
Solid waste is running pretty smooth. That wasn't the sewer district, so solid waste is good. I talked to Ruth, we're gonna start having she's gonna post it, our park and trail committee starting up again in May, first Monday in May. We're gonna start our meetings again. We're gonna discuss the Trail Ridge Park, and we're gonna start working on our fundraiser on September 24th. So,
Justin, if I could,
yeah, absolutely.
the only thing I would speak to is as we listen to that, my concern with donations to a park, this may seem so petty, but we definitely have areas in the town that are more affluent than others. And I don't know as though it's appropriate to go dump all the money, even if it's donated, into a park that benefits 12 citizens or 50 citizens when we have multiple parks that aren't benefiting our citizens now. So just as that conversation was had, I just thought, man, that's a lot of money. But at the same time, so what? We got some rich people that live in some place and they're willing to give a lot of money. And we're going to benefit those 50 citizens versus all of Westville. It's like I don't know how you balance that out. It's just a little bit of.
But oftentimes you see in donations what I call a directed donation, that it's to be applied and used.
In the
I'm not.
thing.
I don't know what you do with it. I'm just saying it is one of those harder things where I'm looking at that thinking, man, that's a unique thing.
Well, without those kind of donations, we wouldn't have the city park
that we have now. I'm not saying don't take donations. I'm just saying it can get very skewed quickly.
Back to Justin on the solid waste, we had a couple for days.
We did.
And Center Street Park was overwhelmed. So
Sunset, we smashed, finally had to put signs up telling them to go to Westfield, which is an extra dumpster that does cost us. We also have citizens out at Anderson Junction that are requesting a dumpster out there. My personal belief is, guys, if we can get our community cleaned up, I would much rather have them go out in like side roads, walk through this private property or BLM, because that's what happens.
Well, and I would say, Lance, if we have certain dumpsters that are always full and we're smacked, go put another one by it. I mean, the cost of that, to have at least go in one spot and get rid of it.
I know they give us
Four.
but that's what I'm saying.
Like even Trail Ridge, it was full, but it had never been smashed down, and it could have taken more for sure.
What does it cost us to get a dumpster that we have to pay for?
I don't know the number, 100.
See, I think that's money well spent if we had 4 or 5 new additional dumpsters.
I just think just where we know that it's like Center Street Park, to me, you know, that's, everybody knows that one's there. I would say put 2 there. I think do the same thing.
The thing is they left the one over in Westfield because they didn't bring it. They used a small one, but they didn't get it dumped Monday. But when you were out there working Tuesday, it was still there. People were still throwing their trash in it. So
That's a good place for their trash.
There is a need, and I would much rather get hauled off. You know, and citizens are willing to work the effort. I just think that we have to do more.
So you brought up Anderson Junction, and we have a dozen residents out there. You know, it is hard. You know, we'd have to tuck that dumpster all the way back, and we'd end up, I don't know.
You know, it was them that requested it, so they are citizens, so we just brought it up.
I wonder if it'd be.
Sunset fills up fast.
Yeah, and I live on Sunset, but I haven't put anything out in years because I don't get so full so fast. I just throw out my dump trailer and I go to dump 3 times a year, 4 times a year, and
I kind of enjoy the drive to Virgin to the dump up there.
I can't use my dump trailer up there. I just can't. It doesn't work. So, anyways. So Dana, do we have a number? I mean, per dumpster. How much? $400. So if we.
But that's the drop off and the pickup.
And pickup. That's the whole thing. Hauling the trash off. So yeah, if we had a couple in October, we do this again. If we want to do extra dump, I have no problem. Let's talk about it. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Sewer district meeting. We have a meeting tomorrow night. So I don't have anything extra to report that I did last week. So that's all I have there.
Okay.
On the Hurricane Valley Fire District, we had a meeting this last week, and they're still growing. They're at 14% per year roughly. I thought it was really interesting. This is still, the volume just keeps going.
Rooftops?
No, the call volume. Call volume, yeah. Economic development. I had a phone call earlier this week with the executive of Sapp Brothers Travel Center. I don't know if they're not really popular here in the West, but in the Midwest they are. And they're very seriously looking at, by the way, Neil Walker told me to tell you hello. Councilman Williams, apparently you know him from years back. But they are taking a very close look at exit 27 for some sort of a travel center. They're actually very nice. If you ever Google them, look around, they're one of the nicer ones that are out there.
How about the truck stop?
Yes, there is. There's just one in Salt Lake, one in Denver. Yep. They pride themselves in being much more than just a truck stop. They're a travel center. They have a grocery store. They have a couple of restaurants in them. They take great pride in what they are, and their restrooms are probably they're like resort style restrooms. Very nice, very clean. Always keeping the community. Anyway, they're looking very closely here. We'll see what happens with them. We have a couple of BLM, which Bureau of Land Management applications. One for the right-of-way. That one received its preliminary approvals to go forward with the NEPA. We call that reviews. So one of them is underway now, but not. It's not. It hasn't started yet. They're picking contractors to do the review. The other one for the sports park, which is an RMPP application, this is a brief report. We had multiple telephone calls, and Councilman Williams was on the call with me on several of those. But I just got an email back from early this week saying that it is progressing, that they are going to apparently had a reassignment internally, but we should be hearing back from them shortly about the same issue. Hopefully it goes right to the NEPA studies, the National Environmental Protection Agency reviews. They go in and do their.
And this is across the freeway?
This is across the freeway for the sports park. Yep. And that is all I had to report today. Thank you. Oh, okay. I didn't speak to Mr.
I have nothing, just make the council aware we will be receiving bids. Lance and I are trying to solicit some proposals to do some water line replacement and asphalt replacement over there. So we'll have that kind of put together here in the next little bit, we're hopeful.
Question, we had somebody come in and have it at us, and they want to hook up to the water and the sewer.
Excellent.
I mean, one person,
No, I think,
one residential, I mean, what,
so,
we just need to.
so the water district is preparing the letters to send out so that we can get all of those citizens to join on to the city system and get them off that well. I would hate to put them on there with not, because Gilbert's still drawing off that line for anything. But that's still a pretty good amount. My fear is if we have one citizen drawing off that water on that long run, we're gonna have a mess. Yeah, but I think, you and I talk about that, and then I'll get with the water, I'll get with Jessica and see what their plan is. They were gonna send those letters out last month, and I haven't seen one, so I don't think it's happened.
Like I said, there was one people who were looking at one develop across the Massachusetts. And they did ask, were they gonna put it through? And he said, yeah. So,
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that. That's good to know. Do you know who?
How many people are coming? What time are we jump this?
This is probably a discussion that needs to take place other than right now.
I'll get with the water board. Yeah. What's going on? That's all.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
The Confluence Park meeting was canceled. Mosquitoes are alive and well. They're being captured as we speak. And they're looking for employees to go out and help catch mosquitoes for the summer. So if you know anybody, looking for another job? Anyway, and that's about it. I did want to ask Lance, I was thinking about that heavy water leak that you had. Do you have back braces in each one of the vehicles in case the guys are going to be doing a lot of heavy digging and dirt and stuff like that? Can you? But
no, you asked me this a year ago.
I go through workers' compensation claims that I get filed with my employees twice a month. Somebody's complaining about a back, and you can file that injury report. It happened because of me working 3 years in a row, shoveling dirt and stuff like that, and they can file a claim. So if you would be conscientious enough to realize when it's over 50 pounds or something like that, let the guys know the back braces are there in the truck, and they probably should use those.
I mean, you have to wear plans.
Just one quick question. On the 24th of September event, the fundraiser, do you need my assistance in that? Do you want my
I think
involvement?
that's going to be
Because it's kind of a-
primarily a parks thing, probably just to simplify matters.
Okay.
I think if we have one maybe in charge of that, we'd be better off. What do you think?
Any
But
help us with that?
I'm sure any suggestions you might have would be accepted.
I think Chuck ought to sing a solo instead of having the band perform.
No, we're trying to raise money, not drive people away.
Have you ever heard Chuck sing?
He doesn't hang out around my shower.
All right.
Are we having a closed meeting at all?
I don't know, but we're not done yet. Do you have anything for us? You weren't here for the first meeting. Okay. Do you have anything we need to hear in a closed meeting? Okay. I do have one thing to comment on my responsibility. We had another Zoom meeting the other day with the BLM and Senator Romney's people and the county about Topeka Falls. And it's interesting after all of this discussion that we've never had any water testing done on the Working Creek to see if there actually is a problem. So I brought that up, and they're going to get their BLM water quality guys, and they're going to test it up there and periodically down through the stream to see what kind of problem we have downstream from that up there. If it comes back with some chemical issues, then there's no question that it's going to hasten the day when we at least have pit toilets up there. So pit toilets. There's got to be something done. Anyway, they're going to go ahead with that over the next month or so and try to give us some data.
So Mayor, I was
yeah.
brainstorming that I think we need to just put a booth up there, charge it, limit it to like 12 people a day, give Tocqueville citizens 10 of the permits.
Pay
charge-
toilets.
And have everybody charged to go up there. Okay. Unless you live in Tocqueville.
You're in charge of it.
Okay, done.
I was
Is
there
that
2 weeks
permission?
ago and it was really crowded, but everybody was actually really well behaved. And when they were clean, people were cleaning up after themselves. I mean, I was impressed that for as crowded as it were, it was pretty nice.
And most people are that way, but once you get all of those people up there, there's a lot of them that aren't. So, I mean, we've had problems up there, so we know that.
And I agree. I just was glad to see that it was cleaner than normal.
The other thing is I've heard from 2 sources now that they're planning on September 1st for beginning the reservoir project. So we'll see how that all pans out. We've heard that kind of stuff before.
That's the construction.
Starting construction, yeah.
Oh, is it September 1st?
Yes, 2021 this year.
It was published in the Code Federal Register, so.
Yeah. We're at our 45-day public notice.
BLM's done with it except for that. 45-day period.
And I know that they had the contract, the bid, and they had solicited the bid proposals. I didn't know if they had awarded to the contractor. I don't know, do it. I know, I mean, you're right. There was a September, I had heard the same thing that in the bid packets that said you had to be prepared, mobilized, or ready to start and mobilize.
Okay, that's all I have. Is there anything else from the council at this time?
Do we have a reason for a close? Okay, I just curious about that agreement.
Okay, I would accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting stands adjourned at 7:51. Please, I need to talk to you about a couple of things if I could.
You guys in the full session?
No. What's that?
Yeah, we made some headway, but there is one part. Honest to God, I was pulled a 19-foot outright boat down the road. You know there's not a lake up there. I found out. How he got it up there?
Let's hear it for the internet.
That was,
Yeah, the internet.
pretty, thanks for that harbor, yeah.
Run the rapids.
You were ahead of me though. Yeah, Gary, that was.
I was actually my number was actually
60, come into your work meeting, your next work meeting, talk against the planning. We recommended one for approval that is clearly outside board.
That made the money.
Yeah, I was the one dissenting vote. It's the one on your furniture.
I do too.
That's clearly outside. And I know, and I like the kid, and I was doing everything I could to try and get him to say some things. He would let me hold it in his ordinance. He is, and I have a really hard time with us not following the ordinance.
Here's what
because the city has let other people not follow the ordinance.
No, you know what?
We don't follow our own ordinance.
Offend me, I don't care. I'll go right back and we're all friends afterwards, right?
We've talked.
And that's
I
what
know, some things just stick in my
yes,
craw.
I hate this.
Why are we talking about that?
I'm not good at it.
Why are you doing that? You don't pick and choose the ones you enforce. You either have ordinances or you don't. No. I do. I know, that's just, it's nice to be nice, but sometimes you just can't.
Ty, congrats, man, after a lot of work, a lot of
You didn't see my slide, I held up.
I'm just waiting to see how many people next month are here. It's how it went last time. As soon as we did it, the house was so the plan worked. You were the last man standing. Wayne, I think you know me well enough to know you did not have me boiling. I told the mayor, I'm not talking about this until the end.
So who had to pay who on that bet that you weren't gonna say anything?
I probably
I did. But then it got to start all over again because he fixed it. But then it got.
Then he didn't fix it. I put a cardboard thing up on one light to show.
You got an idea when you wanna get together?
You still have holes out of the ground, it just didn't.
I told you, I'm retired whenever you want to.
He was gonna have somebody bending up some metal.
My thing was getting through this water thing.
Yeah,
Tired of it dragging on.
You probably just sometime before your work meeting, probably ought to sit down. So, 3 weeks away, what? 2 weeks away?
Yeah. Gotta get a gardener.
Huh? I know. I got a bunch of stuff sitting on my patio I gotta get planted too, yeah. Hey, we're almost Bobsey twins on shirts. That's pretty close, isn't
I was
it?
afraid this was gonna happen.
I know. We need to start talking to each other.